Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Nihongo Master podcast. I'm your host Azra, and for today's episode, we won't be virtually traveling to any particular city in Japan, but rather focusing on the means of going from one to another. That's right, we'll be talking about Japan's transport system. If you see yourself coming to Japan pretty soon, whether it's next month or next year, finger crossed the global pandemic disappears by then be prepared to be on Japanese trains for more than half the time, especially if you're planning to go to more than one city. Transportation in Japan, particularly the train system, has been complimented time and time again to be one of the world's most efficient. I mean, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't excited by the thought of a bullet train zipping me from one end of the nation to the other before I first came to Japan. And regardless of whether or not you've been here before, the whole thing can be quite confusing. So I'm here to clear things up for you while preparing you for your next visit. Expect useful train language that you can use on your Japan travels and commute. Before we get into it, let's have an overview of the various means of transportation in Japan. The land of the rising sun is well connected with all the methods you can imagine: air, land, and sea. Flights from one city to another is running even during the pandemic, and of course, I've been making the most of this domestic travel. Ferries and ships are abundant too, linking mainland to the smaller islands. But the most prominent means of transport is land, consisting of everything from buses to taxis. But today we're looking at particularly the railway transport. And for this type of public transport, which makes up of 72% of the country's transport system, you'd need an IC card. What is it, you ask? It's a type of rechargeable card used to pay fares on transport, and not just that. You can use it to make payments at other places like vending machines, or jihanki in Japanese, konbini, to mean convenience store, restaurants, and other types of transport with just a touch of the card. When it comes to IC cards though, there's more than one company that makes it. There are a total of 10 of Japan's most popular IC cards, and since 2013, they're all compatible with each other and able to use in most of Japan's large toshi, to mean city in Japanese. Suica by JR East Company is the prepaid IC card that you can get in Greater Tokyo, Niigata, and Sendai regions. Pasmo is the IC card initially for Tokyo's railway and bus systems. Ikoka by JR West Company is the one most likely used in Kansai region, including Osaka and Kyoto. These are the three most common ones, though like I said, you can use any of the 10 companies and they're all fine except for some occasions in inaka or countryside area where the card is not compatible. Maybe you want to collect them like playing cards. You don't have to get an IC card. You can also just get tickets, and you can buy them at any train station you see. So as you can see, commuting in Japan via train is a breeze, but the price does rack up quite a bit. That's because there are various transport companies that make up the transport system in Japan. We'll have a brief look at a few categories: JR system, Shinkansen, and private railway companies. But first, here's a quick vocab recap. Jihanki, vending machine. You can also call it by its full name: Jidou Hanbaiki. Konbini, convenience store. Inaka, countryside. Toshi, city. A word to mean the opposite of countryside is tokai. We learned inaka and toshi in the first episode of this season, if you recall. First and foremost, the JR system. Quite a vast majority of railway services in Japan are operated by JR. JR stands for Japan Railways, and the 6 regional companies are divided into various areas of the country, but they all run as one. There are other rail companies under JR that are smaller, existing in major cities, but in most parts of the country, you'll just get JR. With Japanese Railway, you'll get a few types of trains. I'm going to name a few, but don't panic just yet. These are the common ones you'll definitely encounter. There's the local train, which is called Futsu, and it stops at every station. You also get the rapid train, which is called Kaisoku. This type of train skips a few stations, so it's definitely faster than the local. Then you have the express train, called Kyugo, and it skips a lot more stops, so it's naturally more expensive. I think the top on the list is the limited express, known as Tokkyu, and it's faster than the express and therefore more expensive. If you're planning on traveling mostly by JR train lines, your best bet to saving a few bucks is by getting the Japan Rail Pass. At a flat rate, you're allowed to travel on virtually all of the JR services for 7 consecutive days, which includes buses, ferries, and Shinkansen, which we'll get into it in a bit. If you're only roaming around for a couple of days in just one city, I don't recommend this one. Now let's quickly recap the vocab. Futsu, local train. This is also the word for normal. Kaisoku, rapid train. Kyuko, express train. Tokkyu, limited express train. By the way, if you haven't checked out our official website yet, why not give it a browse? At Nihongo Master, we offer efficient Japanese lessons that are quick, easy, and fun for Japanese language learners of all levels, from beginners to advanced. Our smart tools will assist you in areas where you need a little bit of a push and congratulate you on the ones you've aced. With a community of over 50,000 Japanese students, you're not alone on your learning journey. Make new friends and improve together with our point system, collecting points as you go along. Ask away any questions you have on our group discussion pages. There's sure to be others as well as our Japanese instructors that are quick to answer. You can also take Nihongo Master with you on the go and learn Japanese as you trot the globe. Practical, right? So I've mentioned a couple of times, but the Shinkansen is something not a lot of people don't know about. The Japanese bullet train is being called that because of its design. It looks like a bullet with its smooth, rounded front and back ends. On this type of densha train, you barely feel the speed. It goes up to 320 kilometers per hour. There are 6 main Shinkansen lines that connects the south end of the island to the north end. But that's not the part you should be worried about. It's the types of Shinkansen services that are available. There are 3 in total. Kodama, which stops at all stops, kind of like the local train of Shinkansen trains. Hikari, which stops at major stations, so the equivalent of a rapid train. And Nozomi, which is the fastest service of them all and only available on one line. With Nozomi trains, you pay a hell lot more for the speed. So if you're going one end to the other, you'll cut down quite a bit of time. Wait, I'm not done. After you've chosen your type of train, you have to choose your type of carriage. There's the more expensive first-class ones known as the green car, Grinsha. Don't ask me why it's called that. Some believe that it's named after the pale green line drawn on the outside of the car so it's easily recognized. If you're not willing to splurge on some Midori, green carriage, then get the Futsusha. We all know that means ordinary. Right, so after that, you now have to pick your seat. I know, there's a lot of steps to the Shinkansen that makes you want to just book a flight. Don't worry, this is the last step. Pick between reserved or shitei seki or non-reserved jiyu seki. There are sections for the seat types, and some train types don't even offer non-reserved seating, so you are kind of forced to fork out the extra cash. Oh, and when you're booking your tickets, you might want to think if you want just a one-way, katamichi, or a round trip, ofuku. But hey, it's all for the experience of the famous Japanese bullet trains, am I right? Here's a quick vocab recap. Kodama, local Shinkansen. Hikari, a rapid Shinkansen. Nozomi, the fastest Shinkansen. Grinsha, green car. Shitei seki, reserved seat. Jiyu seki, non-reserved seat. Seki means seat. Katamichi, one way. Ofuku, round trip. Our last category is the private railway companies. This is where your transport prices bump up even more, switching from JR to these private companies. While the JR system brings you to most parts of Japan, you might find yourself coming across private railways not owned by JR. Larger cities have bigger private railway companies like some Chikatetsu or subway lines, so don't think it's only the smaller cities that have privately owned railway systems. Kanto's private lines connect Tokyo to major tourist cities like Nikko, Chiba, and Gunma. Some Tetsudo, which means railway, runs only in the city. Take Hakone, for example. This mountainous city has a private railway system that climbs up the mountainous terrain. If you go there from Tokyo, you'll be switching from JR to private, so you have to come up with a bit of extra cash on top of your JR pass if you bought one. But don't worry, popular cities offer discount prices for a flat rate over a period of time, kind of like the JR pass. If you don't know what to do, seek help from the Ekiin, the station attendant. Let's recap the vocab. Chikatetsu, subway. Tetsudo, railway. Ekiin, station attendant. within minutes, the complicated railway system of Japan has been broken down into 3 categories, with all the basic vocab words you need on your first few travel trips here. Head over to the Nihongo Master blog if you're interested in reading up on them some more. On the blog as well, we have recap posts of our podcast episodes. Not only is there a brief summary of what we discussed in each episode, but also the full vocab list for you to refer back to. And if you're keen on picking up some more Japanese for yourself, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and the official website to learn more. Thank you so much for listening in. Join me in the next one, where I'll be walking you down another avenue of Japan's rich culture. Mata ne!